Welcome back to the Roll-Up High Roller community. As always, nothing on the Roll-Up is to be construed as financial advice. We are educators in the DeFi space. Toss us a quick like, give us a share, a repost, send it to a friend who may want to watch this, and finally, give us a sub or a follow. It means the world to help support credibly neutral educational content in DeFi. We're here to educate, empower, and enrich you, and let's jump in.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Roll-Up. I'm just going to talk right to the camera today because you guys are maybe watching this at home, maybe didn't see Dev Connect, but we're bringing all the content right to you, and we're going to have some fun today because this has been a blast of a week. It's been a chaotic week for sure, but there's been tons of knowledge spreading around the space. Do you guys see what's on Andy's shirt? Let's hear from him.
Do you see this? Like I've got polynomials on my shirt, and David, like David, what do you have to say for yourself?
Bro, I'm just chilling, man. You know, I gotta stay comfortable. I got the hoodie, I got the PJs. Like, I just gotta stay comfortable.
The East Coast boys are just built different out here. I'll tell you that. So, where are you from?
I am from Virginia, actually. Yeah, East Coast. So,
yeah, Robert and I are from Florida. I don't know if you do it, and he's surfing out there in Virginia, but I've heard that it's pretty nice.
yeah, a lot of like trees, forests, like good hikes and stuff like that. Yeah,
nature guy. Huge nature guy. Yeah, I'd love to if you could introduce yourself and explain what you're doing to a 5-year-old.
All right, to all the 5-year-olds out there. So that sounded weird, but yeah, my name is Dave. I'm a DevRel at Taiko. And yeah, basically what I'm focused on is like a lot of times trying to give like really good education for people about like what Taiko is. Also just like about like what Ethereum and the rollups are in general. Like I really enjoy just like casually talking about it, not getting like too crazy technical about stuff. And, yeah, just trying to make Taiko, you know, try to give the best developer experience we can for Taiko for like the developers and users. And, yeah, it's pretty much what I work on.
Yeah, so before we dive into like some of the Roll-Up like conversation, if you can tell us like a little bit about your background and like how you found the space.
All right, yeah. So I worked as I studied computer science in school. Like I was always just into like computers and stuff growing up. I always liked, you know, making stuff, and yeah. So I studied computer science. I worked as a software engineer for a little bit. And then I actually ended up working at GameStop. You guys know about the whole GameStop NFT craze? Yeah. I was there on the blockchain team. Yeah. That's actually how I got into it. Like, exactly, is how I met Matt at GameStop, and then from Loopring, exactly. So yeah, I was working there as an engineer, and So then I just moved on to like Taiko, and I kind of wanted to try something new, like. I just found out like when I was working at GameStop that I really liked the architecture of the product. Like I liked looking into the system architecture and like documenting it. And I was like, I wanted to kind of get deep into Ethereum, like learn more about Ethereum. So I fucked with Matt. So like I just wanted to like
It's like I have a personality type that is like you build it. You know, you just want to build.
Right. Yeah.
Big Lego guy.
Right. No, I loved Legos growing up too. He knows it all. Right.
So GameStop is definitely familiar to like probably everyone who's watching. Like, Are they launching a Roll-Up like just from the inside out? Like, could you tell us a little bit about like the alpha that's happening right now at GameStop, and like while you were there, like what was the transition that they were going?
So while I was there, they weren't building like a Roll-Up. They were just building two products, like an NFT marketplace and also like a wallet extension. Both of them were like honestly really nice products. But yeah, no Roll-Up. They were just building on top of like Loopring and I think Immutable X at the time. Yeah.
Really? Monster Dex. These guys ever see that? It's just crazy.
Was it a Dex?
I swear it was a Dex, Radio Shack Dex. And it was wild to see at that time, like just big companies coming in and be like, yo, we want part of this space.
Yeah.
This stuff was huge.
Right.
It's coming off that whole like media gen.
Right. Yeah.
So you reckon something would have happened there?
Yeah. Not during kind of like the meme madness and everything, but like during like the last like bull run, like the NFT kind of bull run, I was there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and the atmosphere must have been crazy.
Yeah.
Just GameStop, everyone was like, "Holy crap, what is going on?"
Yeah.
So you had a passion to build things, physical things, Legos. I was a big Star Wars Lego guy myself.
Okay.
Then you kind of turned that into like wanting to do computer science and like building the abstract.
Yeah.
Like, is it something that you still do a lot as a dev? Is there engineering in your day to day? It was mostly working with it.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. It's like I think it's kind of when you work at like an infrastructure layer, kind of like Taiko, like a lot the DevRel experience is like maybe different than if you had like a really, I don't know, it's like what we're delivering is like a kind of like a very technical thing for like developers. It's not as much as like it's not the same type of DevRel experience I think you get at other companies where you're doing maybe like more marketing, trying to get like more people on your product. Like this is like very educational, like very technical. So like, yeah, we have an opportunity. We don't do like engineering, like writing code day to day, but like we have to understand like the protocol and the architecture well, so that because that's like really what the product is that we're trying to deliver a great experience for, and also write all the documentation. So I would say no, there's not like direct engineering in terms of like writing the protocol code or the client code, but there's like still that sense of like I think a lot of people in crypto have, where you're just trying to figure out how to design something in the best way. You know what I mean? Like what's the best way to kind of like figure this out? And the team's still like small enough to where it's like, everybody kind of wears that hat of trying to figure out the best way to do things.
A lot of the building that like we do, and I take it that like developer relations at either at Taiko or a lot of the projects is like building relationships, which is a major part, and it's still very much like a constructive type of practice.
And like maintaining them, right? Because you're kind of like the middleman or the gateway from like, people who don't really understand engineering and development to like the devs, right? And so you kind of have to be like this almost like layer of osmosis or something.
Like middleware type of like.
Yeah. So do you embody that, like that role? Yeah.
Yes. It's honestly, that's what makes DevRel like really challenging. And it's like, it's something that needs to exist, because it's like, if you need to have that inner layer. And I think the most important thing that a DevRel can do, I think almost anyone, but it's especially important for DevRel, is like you just have to be able to filter out certain things so that you can focus on like the core product, the most important experiences and everything. Like, so yeah, you have to be kind of systematic, organized, and like just know what are the right things to focus on, because otherwise it's very easy to get pulled all around and just have so many different like responsibilities when you're serving that kind of middle layer, like you'll be doing everything from like going to conferences and like giving talks to like actually like almost auditing the protocol, like reading through the code and everything. And it can be super wide, so you have to know like, are you doing like the most impactful work, like the things that just drive the most value?
Is there a general pattern that you could suggest to other like DevRel and maybe BD? Like what are some of the like general practices that you find are helpful to filter out what's not important? Like what do you find commonly are like some of those things that like the misconception people might think that they're important, but they're really not the most impactful? And then also like, what is the most impactful?
Yeah. So honestly, if I were to give like one piece of advice, it would just be to use whatever product you have, like at least, I don't know, once a week or at some cadence. Like we do it at least once a week, but like just whatever you have, like whatever product it is, just use it. Just consume it. Like even if you're giving talks and stuff, like we're doing stuff like this, right? Just watch your content or walk through your own tutorials and guys, just use it. And it's like, I don't know, you have to do that. I think all of us have like a lot of pride, like in our work and everything like that. So like, yeah, you gotta be able to like use your product, and if you have a lot of pride in it, you'll see the things that are like off, you'll see the things that you want to improve, and like that's the thing that'll like most directly improve like what your product is, like the thing that you're actually delivering, right? And yeah, that's the most important thing. For Taiko, it's something like people come to our website or our Twitter, and they come to try to learn about like what Taiko is, and they try to use it, deploy a contract. So running through that workflow frequently is probably the best way that I know how to like do the most important.
Experimenting, and then also like being your own harshest critic, you know, and
Yeah.
and that's kind of how you grow and how you're able to elevate your game. Now, I'm more curious. Kind of last question that I have on like the more personal side before we dive into some of the base rollups, which is like there's been multiple concepts that I've heard of in this week that I was just like, how I thought I knew so much about the modular and the rollup space, and it's just like, but which languages did you study? Which programming languages did you study? And do you know? And like, does that help you with your position? Did you have to learn new languages to do DevRel? Like in college, kind of which ones did you study?
So I mean, in college, I just studied Java. So that's what I used. And when I worked as a software engineer, I used Java as well, which honestly, good language. Yeah. In terms of like, back in like Web 2, a lot, when you're trying to like interview for like companies and like get into like, these like FANG companies and stuff like that, you end up doing a lot of like puzzles. And I would always use like Python, because Python is like a very easy language to just do whatever idea you have. You can just like do it in Python like very easily, very fluidly. So yeah, Python, JavaScript, C, stuff like that. Yeah.
And then is a lot of the stuff now Solidity based with Taiko and
right, exactly. A lot of it is Solidity based. Two languages that I'd love to learn that I think would be useful is like Go, and also Rust is like very popular, because if you think about what Ethereum really is, it's these clients that are written, and the major ones are written in like Go and Rust. So that's something that I have like on my bucket list, like that I want to like dive deeper into and learn more about. But yeah, Solidity being a major one.
Well, it's time to dive into the weeds, boys. I jumped into Epic ETH Infraday where our boy had a talk here, and he pulled out a term, precompilers, which is an interesting term in the world of zkVM specifically, if I'm not mistaken, just kind of rollups in general. So we're gonna leave that one for about 5 more minutes. So definitely keep watching. But let's talk about based rollups and what that means. I had a talk with Justin Drake. Well, I was watching a talk, and he was talking about that based native rollups as well, which is kind of perhaps a second layer there. I don't really recall, and by the look of your face, I'm not sure if you know either. All right, well, let's just start with base rollups and why using like L1 sequencing and kind of L1 properties can be seen as having advantages. So yeah, I guess for a 5-year-old, let's talk about base rollups.
So a based rollup is for the new members of the audience, it's basically just means that like for any rollup, someone needs to post these transactions that everyone wants to do to Ethereum or Celestia or some data availability layer, right? Like you just need to store that data somewhere, and usually this is done by like, as it sounds, like a sequencer. Like you have to put these on that layer in some type of ordering, right? So because Ethereum and blockchains in general, they're state machines, right? Like they go state by state, like step by step. So there's always a sequence, you know what I mean? And anyways, that's why we have this term like a sequencer. A sequencer takes all this stuff people want to do. They want to do trades, blah, blah, blah. And a sequencer, takes a set of those transactions and they post it to Ethereum or Celestia, etc. Now for a based rollup, that sequencer isn't like a whitelisted or like specialized role. Like for a lot of the rollups, like they operate a sequencer, like, so it has like a certain like Ethereum address, and only that sequencer is allowed to post the data to the smart contract, on Ethereum. So that's what like having a centralized sequencer is. For a based rollup, anybody can just post the data to create the rollup, right? Like, so if you want to create a block on Taiko, you can literally just run a node. Like you can go to our docs, you can run a node, and then you'll have access to that a mempool that just is all the transactions that people have sent into the network. And you can just take some of those transactions and you can just create a block in Taiko. Anyone can, so that's what it means to be a based rollup. Like it's totally permissionless, like block proposing. And if you think about it, like the person who's really putting this on chain ends up being the validator on Ethereum, right? So yeah, and why do we do this? Why do we do a based rollup? Like one thing that you'll notice is based rollups also end up centralizing in an interesting way. Like a lot of people talk about like decentralized sequencers and stuff, but yeah, the thing is when there's like capital available on the table, like money available on the table, like things will always tend to centralize for that person to get those gains, you know what I mean, to be able to extract that value. So actually even based rollups end up centralizing a little bit around block builders. But yeah, it's not actually a bad thing, as I actually chatted with Justin Drake as well about this yesterday. And when we have like inclusion lists and block builders can't really censor transactions, it'll be fun. Like it's not, centralization is actually, I know I'm kind of going on here, but I think one important thing to keep in mind is centralization is like not necessarily a bad thing. Like that's my take. Like we say like decentralization, centralization, like they are usually, it's usually nice to have decentralized properties, but really what we're looking for is like censorship resistance, like liveness of the network. Like those are the kind of qualities we want. But yeah.
Yeah, I think just real quick on the on the base rollup side, we saw that there's in that presentation there's less toxic MEV, which is kind of, I think, a little bit where you're alluding. Also, there's less risk of a network reset where say this single point of failure for a centralized sequencer goes down. There, you have a bunch of downtime, and then you could risk having kind of this network reset or people leaving and not coming back and kind of lose your kind of community or your network effects. And then I think there was a couple other key components that you kind of explained there, which is it's definitely an interesting one. So Rob, if we could sum up base rollups, I think you have a question, but I'd love to kind of hear what your perspective is on base rollups.
So a common misconception that I had, maybe this was just kind of like all along my journey as I was learning about this stuff, was that like if I submit my transaction with like a really high gas, even if my transaction has the highest gas, doesn't mean that my transaction is going to get posted to the blockchain first. It's not like that simple, whereas like the highest gas gets posted first. There is this network of sequencers, and they can choose to pick up whichever transactions they choose to pick up. The incentives point to the ones that that pay the highest gas. The sequences and the highest gas is going to pay the most for that slot in the block. But there's all these things like where that transaction is coming from. If there is like front running or back running opportunities in that transaction, that may also have kind of like underneath incentives that could also pay these sequencers and these validators. So I think that's one takeaway from these rollup mechanisms, is that it's not always the highest gas that wins the fastest transaction. And that's characteristic of rollups in general, because these are all transactions that are getting posted to the L1. With respect to based rollups, my understanding is that there are certain trade-offs, and some of those trade-offs are security, because these based rollups, and I'm still wrapping my head around this, because I think base rollups is something that like I heard about like 4 or 5 days ago maybe, and like
I didn't mean to put you on this.
No, it's okay. So like my understanding of like why based rollups are special is because they use the L1 for settlement. And that's not characteristic of all rollups. So they use certain properties of the L1, whereas other rollups do not use as much of the L1. Maybe it's data availability, maybe it's other characteristics of the L1. That's like still very high level because I don't know exactly what what parts of the L1 based rollups use, whereas other rollups may not use that part. Is it the sequencer? Is it the data availability part? Like what's special? And I think you probably know about this better than I do. Like, what is it about the L1 that based rollups use that other rollups don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like, I'd say there's like two things that come off the top of my mind. I'm sure there's more for the bigger experts on based rollups, but yeah, exactly. The GigaBrains, like our CTO and Justin and stuff. But the two things that just come right to my mind are like, one, it's permissionless, right? So what that means is like anybody can build blocks. They can sequence these transactions, and I think I think that's just a really interesting thing that ends up happening because we end up having a sequencer. It just ends up being a block builder. Like it's a permissionless thing. So that's one feature we kind of get out of it. It's like anyone can just come in and like participate in the system, extract MEV, and then become like a block builder. The second thing is Justin talked about in a new ETH research post he released a few days ago where he talked about like based pre-confirmations. But the basic idea is that like if the validators can opt into like some slashing conditions, they can opt into those and give like pre-confirmations to users that their transaction will be included. So that's like a feature that you usually can only get from like centralized sequencers, but we can actually achieve that with a based rollup.
Quick clarification. Like when I think about based rollups and the components of the L1 that they use, like my understanding is that when I submit a transaction to a based rollup, it goes directly to Ethereum's mempool. Is that true?
Essentially, yes. It's it essentially yes, but it'll go to an alternate mempool. It'll go to an alternate mempool first. Maybe you can send them to Ethereum's mempool. I'm actually not 100% sure. I think that would be a little bit. It could work. There could be some shared mempool, but like the basic idea is correct. Like these transactions will land into a shared mempool for like that the L2 clients are running, and then a block proposer or anyone who's looking at that mempool will just take a sequence of those and they'll just submit it into a single transaction in Ethereum's mempool.
And so the block proposer on Ethereum basically someone who's a builder on Ethereum, not like a Siemens.
Oh, right. So yeah, an Ethereum validator ultimately, or the Ethereum proposer will pick up that transaction, and they're the ultimate sequencer. That's why we call it like sequencing by the L1 validators, because I mean they can always choose what to do with the mempool. They can just not even look at the mempool, create their own transactions. So yeah, the based rollup is really just where the sequencing is 100% decided by the L1 validator.
All right, let's get it. So in your talk at Epic ETH Info Day a couple of days back, you were speaking a lot about base boosted rollups, yes, which is unique to Taiko, which essentially allows teams of dApps to deploy dApps onto L2s, Taiko and others, I assume, without needing to basically change the code or redeploy. Right. You can essentially just almost port it over, for lack of a better term.
Right.
So again, I'm going to keep the audience very curious, and we're going to come back to the precompiler topic, which is basically using these different types of subsets of kind of smart contract programming or code sets that may not be in Solidity or in a given language, but you're able to kind of port them in and then execute them in smart contracts. And so I think these two kind of go hand in hand with what you guys are trying to do with base boosted rollups. So how are you guys utilizing these L1 call data precompilers and other precompilers to execute based boosted rollups?
Okay, that was a really good explanation of what precompiles. Like, so the basic idea is just like you said, we can it's a way to add functionality into an Ethereum client. Yeah, without there's basically kind of like two ways to do this. Like one, you can add like an opcode, which is like an instruction that's inside of the Ethereum virtual machine. or you can add a precompile, and that allows you, it'll sit at some contract address, and when you call that precompile, it will execute some code that can be whatever you want, whatever feature that you want inside of that client. So let's keep it simple. Let's still keep it, simple for 5-year-olds, I'd say. The basic idea is this. Layer 2 clients must be running layer 1 clients as well. They have to be running Ethereum nodes or have access to one. It's fundamental to building the layer 2. So we know that for every L2, not just Taiko. So these precompiles basically take advantage of that property, that L2 nodes must be running an L1 node. So the idea is, can we kind of like combine the two to some degree? And like, if we know that we always have access to the L1 node, then can we just like execute things inside of that L1 node? And if you can kind of like stay with me, that basic idea is like, let's say there's, just as an example, some Oracle data that's on layer 1, right? And let's say you have a smart contract on layer 2. You could port it over, and then read the Oracle data on like L2. But one thing you can do is you can just read that data directly. You have the layer 1 node right there. So you can literally read data directly from L1. And essentially the way we think about it is you can interact with L1 itself just from layer 2. And when we say from layer 2, we just mean that like these are things that are happening outside of Ethereum's, consensus, the things that people are actually doing there. So we're doing all this off chain, and that's the basic idea. We have some precompiles that allow you to call that layer 1, and to get into the boosted rollups and how those take advantage of these precompiles is, I'd say let's keep it super simple. The way to the basic idea is, you don't need to deploy to layer 2. You don't need to deploy your dApp to layer 2. You just have it on layer 1, and booster rollups can just scale your application. The way you can kind of think of it is a booster rollup is like adding extra storage or an extra memory or CPU to your app, which is already on layer 1. And it's pretty groundbreaking. I think Nil is also working on a similar thing with ZK sharding, but which is awesome to see, like other people in this space thinking the same ideas as we are, right? Like it kind of validates this thesis to some degree. I think for dApp developers, when I try to like empathize and be in their position, they still have both options. They can just deploy to a non-boosted booster rollup. They can deploy their application there and get that kind of scale that they are used to. But they're going to have to keep in mind like the security properties. They're going to have to like bridge some logic in. They're going to have their contract in two places. And when I like kind of empathize with the developer to some degree, like I think it's really enticing to only have your application in one place on Ethereum and not need to deploy to any of the L2s. And if other L2s like Polygon, Optimism, etc., we're all running Geth, this like execution client. If we can all implement these kinds of precompiles, work together and figuring out good ones, then anyone can boost their dApps from layer 1 on any of the rollups, So it just gives a new kind of development flow for dApp developers. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that dApp developers don't have to change their contract addresses and kind of make new contracts on L2. That's like a big, a big step for them. Often in this like kind of cross-chain, multi-chain world, a lot of dApps are trying to be on a ton of different chains, which, it sounds like this could alleviate some of those headaches and also make it more secure. And I remember Marcin from ZK Sync was busting everyone's balls at Epic ETH Infra Day. And actually, I think he complimented your talk. And I think he said this was really cool. Yeah. And I was like, wow, did that guy just give out a compliment to him for his talk? And on another note, we actually just interviewed with Misha from Nil. Yeah. And they mentioned how you guys were collaborating in some extent to kind of push this space forward, which I think is super cool. My first question on the boosted rollup side is are these boosted rollups, are they going to only be app-specific rollups, or is it is it possible to have a general purpose rollup with 20 different dApps that are all hosted on L1, but all can interoperate on a general purpose rollup, or is this only for app specific?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, and the answer is it could be both. Like you could have a booster rollup and remember a true booster rollup. This is like where the naming gets a little weird, but I'll try to explain it. Like a booster rollup is one that perfectly mirrors Ethereum. So, and anyone can use this, like all the contract addresses, every contract address proxies to its layer one. There's the other idea that I kind of talked about where you could have a booster enabled rollup. That's where you can just take a rollup like, OP mainnet or something like that, right? You implement these precompiles and then they can suddenly access L1 state. They can deploy these proxies and they can do it too, but it's not like it's not like the rollup is a perfect mirror of layer one. So, wait, I kind of lost track.
Specific and general purpose.
Yes, right. So yeah, it could be that you use a booster rollup and you could have like a bunch of different dApps using that one booster rollup. Or you could take one of these things and this like perfect mirror of the L1 and you can just run your own booster rollup and yeah, you can just kind of have that beat. It's kind of like an app chain to some degree, but yeah.
And then is that the plan for Taiko? Is Taiko going to be a based boosted rollup? And if yes or no, why or why not? And kind of what's the let's dive into the dApp ecosystem that you guys plan to launch with as well.
So for us, like we really just want to, like we can't really assert exactly how things are going to look. So what we want to do is like just be as enabling as possible for developers and see what they decide to pick up on, decide to use. So that's why I kind of said there's no downsides to the booster rollup to some degree, because you could scale your application just regularly. And in that case, the kind of dApps that we're looking for are like, the ones that just like are the most enabling for the ecosystem, things that, are related to like account abstraction, privacy, things like that are things that are very important for us, like that just enable people to build like whatever they want on Taiko. And then in terms of like, one vision I think everyone kind of has some degrees, like it would have been like, if you try to turn it all the way back, like what we really wanted in the first place, like really ideally is that Ethereum was just a single chain like itself, right? Like we actually didn't really want all these like L2s and stuff. Like it would be nice if like, in the really ideal case, you just have the Ethereum RPC node, like some RPC provider, like rpc.ethereum.org or whatever. And that's it. It's not expensive to use. There's no million L2s. There's no like sandwiching attacks. All that. That's too optimistic, but I say that because that's still the vision that I think all the L2s honestly are striving for, right? We don't want this to look like there's all this fragmentation, all these different chains. It's like weird for users. So there's an idea at Taiko where we want to have these based booster rollups, and all of them share a validity. They share validity on layer one. This is something you can do when you have a shared sequencer. A based sequencing is actually considered shared sequencer because the validator can insert blocks to any of these rollups. We have an idea to make Taiko look like a single chain, and just it doesn't look like a bunch of fragmentation, even having like thousands of instances of Taiko in parallel.
So I didn't see Justin Drake's talk on based rollups, but I did catch one of Vitalik's presentations about Validium. And we don't have to get too into that, but
right.
I'm curious about like how this model of shared validity, like when all these rollups are boosted and they're proxying the state of Ethereum and all of Ethereum's addresses, it's easy for the validators to validate this state because they're all proxying Ethereum state. Is it too optimistic to think that like these rollups could become Validium, where they kind of like share the validity of their proxying Ethereum state? Therefore, all of the rollups are understanding like what's valid at a given point, and like does Validium get us there? If like essentially what Vitalik was talking about is this like plasma layer that can go on top of rollups. And he's also describing how like these rollups can become Validium rollups by layering on top this like validity layer, which sounds like it's almost like it's like translating the state of all these rollups into something that Ethereum can understand. And it sounds very similar to what you're describing by proxying the Ethereum state. Are you familiar with Validium? And if so, like how can we like capitalize Validium to kind of make a more like to keep rollups more consistent between their states overall?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit familiar with Validium. It's not super familiar, but yeah, I think that and I did see Vitalik's post on like Plasmus as well. I didn't see the talk though. I'd love to check it out, but I think that it does give the general trend, and I kind of agree with this idea too, that there's going to be multiple scaling solutions, not just rollups. And I think that these really transaction heavy or like write heavy applications like gaming and things like that, that can accept some like lower security guarantees for like most of their operations. I think these like Validiums and Plasmas and stuff will be very enticing, but we're still always going to need rollups as like the golden kind of scaling solution for the more important things, like maybe like account management and things that are like more security critical. So I think we're going to have like a mixture, you know, like I kind of imagine in some way that like dApp developers are just kind of like, they're just kind of like selecting which one they want, right? There might be like some dashboard or something. Oh, I want to like do my dApp as a Validium or a roll up or this or that. Like, I think there's going to be ways for them to choose features that give them, lower costs.
Yeah, that's always how I understood it as well. As Validiums are kind of like a lower security, higher throughput kind of mechanism for even for like data availability and scaling and kind of all of that. So on like if you imagine like a line where it's like Validiums are here and then like rollups would be like up here, and it's x-axis would be like cost or like gas use, and y would be like security.
Right. Yeah.
They would also, they'd be very cheap, but also less secure. Then you have different like Celestia's got like their data availability layer, like that they have like optimums or optimiums or something, and then you have like data availability committees, and then rollups are obviously at the top. So yeah, gaming or kind of social applications or different things like that potentially there. As we kind of wrap up here, we're gonna have some fun, and you're not allowed to think; you're just allowed to answer. Okay. And what is your favorite ZK-EVM?
My favorite ZK-EVM.
Yes.
Powder.
Okay. Can you say something nice about a different ZK-EVM based project other than Taiko?
I think honestly, Nil Foundation has been pretty cool. I like what they're doing and the way they're thinking about things.
Nice.
I like them all, honestly. Everyone has been chill. I mean, not to expand too much, but it's so weird. Like, you meet people from like Polygon, the events, people from ZK Sync, like people from Odd, like they're all just chill. Like we're all like, when we meet up, we're just homies. You know what I mean? Like, it's chill.
It's the same vision.
Yeah, it's the same vision. Like, so, but we got to beef sometimes. You know, like, we're gonna beef with Nil on Twitter, like for sure. We got to.
That's how innovation happens.
Yeah.
You know?
right.
ZK rollups or optimistic rollups?
ZK rollups, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash?
Litecoin.
Everyone is just like everyone hates Bitcoin Cash.
That's just a scary one. Bitcoin Cash is like run the other way. Is like
ZK Sync or Polygon ZK-VM?
ZK Sync. Oh my god.
Satoshi or Craig Wright?
Satoshi.
ECC or DevConnect?
DevConnect.
I agree. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been sweet. Yeah. Ripple or Stellar Lumens?
Ripple or what?
Stellar Lumens XLM.
Ripple. Oh my god.
Shiba or Doge?
Shiba. Ooh.
Shiba, the new dog on the block. Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Okay. Do you have cats?
I don't now. Like, I had a cat like There was a cat in my slides. You got to check it out. But yeah.
Do you have a girlfriend?
See, I had a cat. The cat was my girlfriend's cat, but I don't have the girlfriend anymore, and I don't have the cat.
Done.
Proof of work or proof of stake?
Proof of stake. Yeah.
BBWs or BBRs?
BBRs for sure.
Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. That was a fun one. I like the head, man.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
And shout out to Taiko. Keep on pushing on the education, the tech side, and everything. Just keep scaling Ethereum.
Yeah. And thank you guys. I mean, this is an awesome format, and I would love to do like more of these formats and see more of it just from other teams and everyone as well. So really appreciate what you guys are doing in the space as well in terms of education.
Love to have you on, man. You guys are going to see a lot more Taiko content. And yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool.